In this video, we are going to talk about one of the really useful features of Excel, which is formulas. So they are things that let us basically do calculations in Excel. So we're first of all going to talk about what cell references are. Then we'll look at the kind of basic math operators like how you add, subtract, divide and multiply and so on. Then other math functions that we can use to do things like find the average. And lastly, then copying formulas from one place to another. Okay, so first of all, the file that you're going to need to work along with this video is in section 4 here, Excel formulas. And you can just scroll down to underneath the video and click on the practice file. Then open up the file that is downloaded. And in here then, within the zip file, you'll see this formulas practice spreadsheet. So you can just double click on that to open it in Excel. You'll need to click enable editing to be able to edit it. And before we start with that, then we're also going to just save that into the right correct location. So go to File, Save As, and save it wherever you normally save your files. So say OneDrive, for example. So I'm going to put it into here, and you can, it's called at the moment copy of formulas practice. You can just call it formulas practice or whatever you want. Okay, and then click save. Okay, and you'll see there's some sheets at the bottom. So we actually just want to go to the first sheet first, cell references. Okay, so once you're on the first sheet, then we are good to go. Okay, so cell references. We haven't kind of really talked about these yet. We've just been looking at formatting and we looked at charts last week. But cell references are basically just the kind of the label that each cell has. So it's a combination of the column it's in, the letter the letter of the column, and also the number of the row. So for example, this first cell here is A1, this one is A3, this one's A4, A5, and so on. You get the idea. And like this one, for example, would be K2. Okay. If you're ever unsure, you can see up in the menu there on the home menu, kind of just go down underneath clipboard there, you'll see the cell reference over here. So this one tells me I'm in cell K2. So these haven't been really kind of important to us so far, but once we start working with formulas, they do become very important. So that's just to explain kind of what cell references actually are. So we'll go on then straight away to the next sheet and start talking about some of the different things we can do with Excel. So click on sheet 2 there, math operators. And yeah, like I said, Excel is really good in terms of the all the different formulas and functions that you have to do calculations. Just to show you there, we have a menu called formulas. A lot of the time, I'm just going to show you kind of how to type in what you need to do. But just to show you here, there's absolutely thousands and thousands of formulas. So people use Excel for all sorts of really complex things like financial stuff. I don't know anything about accounting things and math and trigonometry. There is absolutely endless amounts of different things you can do. So it's a really powerful tool. But we are just going to start off with some of the basics. So if, for example, I want to add these two numbers together, let me just actually zoom in on this a little bit so you can see what I'm doing a bit better. So I'm just in this first section here. So I have these numbers 6 and 3 and I want to add them together. And let's say I want the result to show up here underneath where I have it saying result. So I'm going to enter a formula into this cell that adds these two numbers together. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to click in the cell or double click and type in an equals symbol. So we always start our formulas with the equals sign. Next then we are going to click on the first number that we want to add. So you'll see if you click the number 6 there, it puts in this cell reference. And like I said, this is where we start to kind of use the cell references. So rather than me just type in 6 plus 3, what I'm going to do instead is put in A6 and then a plus, and then I can click on the second one, which is B6. You could just type A6 and B6 yourself, but I just think it's handier to click, and you kind of can't get it wrong that way as well. So A6 plus B6. Okay, and hit the enter or return key on your keyboard once you're done, and it'll give you the result 9. Okay, another place just to show you there on your menu, kind of up at the top there, there's also this what's called the formula bar. So even later on, when in the cell here you're just seeing the result, you can still see up here that it's the formula that's created that. So it's A6 plus B6. And yeah, and you can also, just to show you as well, you can get back into editing it by clicking or double clicking back into the cell again. Okay, so you may be wondering at this stage, why do I need a formula to add 6 and 3 together? You probably could do that one in your head. But the great thing with Excel is that you can now update these numbers and the result will update as well. So say if I type in a really big number here and another really big number here, it will now add those together. So like I wouldn't be able to add those two together quite so easily in my head. Yeah, but Excel keeps the results kind of up to date as other numbers change. So that's kind of the main reason that we want to do it this way, as opposed to just adding them up ourselves and then typing the result in here. Okay, so I'm going to go on and do these others. You'll see as I kind of go through this, the formula is always really the same, I suppose. It's just going to be the operator that changes. So in this case, I'm going to type equals and click on the 6, which is cell E6, and then a minus symbol this time. So that's like the hyphen there on your keyboard, and the number we want to subtract. So 6 minus 3, you should see there the result of 3. The next one, multiplication, same idea again, it's equals, and we want to multiply 6 by 3. This is maybe a little different than what you're used to. So you can see here I've just shown here that it's this symbol, it's the asterisk, which is on the 8 key on your keyboard if you're not sure where to look for it. Probably in, when you've learned maths before, you use maybe an X to represent multiplication, but in Excel it's this asterisk symbol instead. So you can type that in and click on the second number that you want to multiply, and again press enter to get your result. And lastly then division, same idea again, equals, clicking on the first one we want to the number we want to divide, and then the symbol for division is a forward slash, so that one there, and yeah, and then we click on the number we're dividing by, which is this one here, and you should see the result is 2 in that case. Okay, so if you have any issues as you're doing any of that, let me know. But if that all went okay, then we're going to look here at one that's just a little bit more complex. So like in, when you're doing your arithmetic and maths and so on, you can combine those together using brackets to do more complex things. So in this case, I want to add number 1 and 2 together and add number 3 and 4 together, and then multiply those two results against each other. So for that, I will type in equals, and in brackets, so it's a round bracket, that's on the 9 key on your keyboard. I'll click the first one and a plus, and this second number, and close off that set of brackets. Then a multiplication symbol, another set of brackets, and number 3, and then a plus, and then number 4, and close off the brackets. And just before I hit enter here, just to kind of show you how that one's working, Excel does this nice thing as well where it's kind of highlighting all the cells in my formula in a different color. So I know A15 is this blue one, B15 is this red one, and so on. So yeah, so we should be getting, you know, these two to get added together to give us 9, these two added together to give us 10, and then multiplying those two together we should get 90. So that's kind of what you're aiming to see there. Yeah, and you can combine those then in, you know, in any combination that you want. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of those math operators. The next thing then is functions. So math operators are fine, I suppose, when you only have a few numbers that you're working with. But if you had, let's say, I don't know, you have 1,000 different sales figures, you definitely don't want to have to type in equals this one plus this one plus this one. Like, you'd be clicking and typing for a long time. So there's other quick ways to just calculate the total of a range of numbers like this. And also do other things like find the average, find the lowest number, find the highest number, count the number of numbers, and count the number of words as well. So we'll just go through an example of each of those. So again, you're gonna type your formula into where you want the result to show up. Okay, so I'm gonna say I want the result for this one. Let me just zoom in again. I want the result for this one to show up here. Okay. So in here, I'm going to type equals, and this time what I'm doing is sum. So sum is a formula or function that will get the total of a number of different cells. So type sum, then open up a round bracket, and then you're going to highlight all of the numbers that you want to include in your calculation. So click in, like, right in the middle of the first cell and drag all the way down to get all of those numbers there. Okay, and you should see then in the brackets, it's after putting in there A5 colon A12. So that means basically every cell from A5 all the way down to A12. Again, you could type that in yourself if you wanted. However, it is just, I think, a little bit easier to just highlight instead, because you kind of know then you're getting the correct numbers and all that. Okay, so lastly then you'll just close off your round bracket and press enter, and that should give you the result. Okay, similar idea then for average, except this time we're going to type equals and average. So this one, as you can probably guess, is going to get the average of all these numbers. So again, type equals average, open a round bracket, highlight all the numbers you want to include, and close the bracket next. Okay, and then press enter. So the average of that is, as you can see there, we might want to, you know, format this. If you remember from the formatting section, in numbers you can increase the decimal place or decrease it. So I could do this, so it just rounds to 41, for example. Okay, that's this little option here. Next then, min is a formula that you can use to find the lowest in a range of numbers. So say these are ages here, for example, and we want to find out who's the youngest. I can type in equals and min, and the rest is pretty much the same. You open up the round bracket, highlight all the cells that you want to include, close the round bracket, and press enter. So that shows me the lowest number there is 12. Over here then we'll do the same for the highest number. So that's max instead, equals max. And again, open round bracket, highlight all the cells that you want to include, and close the round bracket. And yeah, so that tells the highest number there is 79. You can use min and max on fields that have words in them as well, and in that case min will find the lowest alphabetically. So say, you know, words starting with A, max would find words starting with Z. Okay, and our last couple of things then, count and count A. So count is a quick way for you to count the number of numbers that are there. Again, you know, when it's this many, I suppose you might not see the use of it, but again, imagine if you had, you know, 1,000 different sales figures, you don't want to have to kind of go through and count every single row. So the formula for counting is equals and count. Again, it's round brackets and then highlight everything that you want to count, close the round brackets and press enter. So that tells me there's 8. And lastly then, count A. Count only works on numbers. So it's okay for counting this kind of thing, or the same with my other numbers I had over there. But if it was words instead, you need to use count A. So that tells it to count. Look for letters. So again, just type count A, open your round bracket, select all your words and close the bracket. And that should tell me there's 5 different counties listed there. Okay, lastly, copying formulas. So in the Excel basics video that I put up in the general section, I talked a little bit about using fill, the fill handle to copy stuff. So we're going to go into this now in a little bit more detail here. So I'm going to just, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Yeah, zoom in here. The first section here, we're going to have a look at how you can copy across the way. So I'm going to just type a formula in here first, very similar to what we did in the last one, equals sum and round bracket, highlight all the Waterford sales and close the bracket. So that calculates that total there. But just imagine, say I had one of these columns for every county in Ireland. That's 26 or 32, depending on how you want to look at it. Basically, yeah, if I have to type that formula 26, 32 times, that's going to be fairly time consuming. So there's a quicker way that I can kind of copy this formula across, and that's using that fill handle. So just to kind of zoom in on that there, the fill handle is this little green kind of square that appears in the bottom of the cell. So when you click in that cell, you've got a green border around the edge, but this green kind of square on the edge there. And when you roll over it, you'll see a black kind of cross appear. And if you click that and drag across the way, that is going to copy that formula across. Just to zoom out there and show you what that's done. So in this formula, I had highlighted the cells A7 to A14. And in this one, it's automatically kind of guessed that I want to use B7 to B14 instead. And that would work if I just, if I kept going the whole way across. Actually, I can just do that to show you because I have some other numbers there. Here, obviously, it's 0 because there's nothing in that column, but here it's counting up all these, and here it's adding up all of these ones. So that's a really handy and quick way to copy your formulas from one place to another. And I'm going to do a similar thing here. This is a little bit similar to what you're going to be doing in the exercise in a second after we finish this. So in this one, we want to calculate unit cost multiplied by quantity. So in here, I'm going to type equals, click on unit cost, which is D7, use the asterisk to say I want to multiply, and then click on the quantity, which is E7. So that tells me for 100 of this thing at $2.99, it's going to cost this much. And again, I wouldn't want to have to type that formula every single time, so I can use this fill handle. Again, you're rolling over the little green dot in the corner of that box, and click and drag all the way down, and that copies the formula down. So you can click into each of the cells here just to see how that works. Here it's using D7 and E7 like I selected, but on the next one it'll use D8 and E8. The next one, you can probably guess, uses D9 and E9 and so on. So it's quite clever in copying kind of relative to wherever the formula is copied to. And those are both examples of what are called relative cell references. So like I said, it's moving or changing the formula in relation to where it currently is. So when it's on this row, it's using the information in this row, and so on. The last example I'm going to show you is if you don't want it to do that, basically. So sometimes you do want it to multiply two things that are next to each other and keep doing that the whole way down. But sometimes you might want to use a thing in your calculation that isn't going to change as you go down the rows. So let's imagine we have these people here. They all have a different number of hours worked, but they're all getting paid the same pay rate. So if I was to do my formula like I did before, I can type in equals, click the number of hours worked, and put in my asterisk for multiplying, and click on the pay rate and press enter. It looks okay so far, but if I copy this down, you'll see it's shown up as 0 in the other ones, and that's because basically there's no information in here, so it's trying to kind of multiply 35 by nothing, and the same for the others. So there's a way we can fix that. I'm just going to get rid of what I did there and show you how to fix that problem. So the way you can kind of tell it to keep using this reference instead of changing it relative to where it's copied to is by putting a dollar symbol before the L and the 7, and that's basically telling Excel to keep using this one instead of changing it. There's a quick way to do that. F4 on your keyboard is a quick way to add in the dollar before the L and the 7. You can obviously type it as well, but just remember it does have to go before the L and before the 7. Okay, so instead now my formula should say I7 multiplied by $L $7. Okay, and this time then when I copy that down, you should see that this one is using I8 but still L7, and the next one, same idea, it's going to be using I9 but also L7, and so on. So that's an example of an absolute cell reference, the absolute one being the one where you use the dollar symbols to specify that it should always stay the same.